Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain.
I can't hear you.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Oh, who lives in a quarantine for 87 weeks?
Andrew No Hands.
Corpulent and bald and grouchy is he.
Andrew No Hands.
If technical testing be something you wish,
Andrew No Hands.
then sit your booty down and listen to this. No, this quarantine thing isn't affecting my mental health in the slightest. Why do you ask, officer? Today I'm going to give you my opinion on the one thing I can review in quarantine that might just help you get through your own quarantine. Between the flu Manchu and fire season here in Arizona, I haven't been to the range in longer than I can remember. So it's really a perfect time to do this review. The Mantis Blackbeard be a handy wee devil. She cocks the hammer smartly and me AR for dry fire practice. But before I be telling you a tale all about it, I'd like to tell you about the fine barrel-aged single malt night vision products brought to you by our friends at TNVC.com. Always crisp and never filling with a clean finish and notes of chicory, TNVC Night Vision is uncompromisingly bold, like you. If you like seeing stuff more than not seeing stuff, take a look at our sponsor, TNVC.com, your source for quality night vision gear to make you the bump in the night. So you're locked in a room all alone for months on end, no toilet paper, no ammo, your range is closed. What do you do? Well, besides that, of course, you dry fire, right? But what's the biggest problem with dry fire using an AR? You can practice manipulating the selector and bringing the rifle from ready to target and pressing that trigger, but once you get the first press, you have to drop out of training mode and work the charging handle to reset the hammer. And you have to do this slowly, intentionally, and whoosah, deliberately after a bit of a pause so as not to unintentionally develop the muscle memory of charging the rifle after every shot. Dry fire training is worthless if you're developing muscle memory that leads you to do something pointless like that in a fight. So when we do dry fire training, we want to be sure that we are not ingraining bad habits. The Mantis Blackbeard is intended to address that issue. On the face of it, the device is pretty simple. There are two parts to it: the magazine-shaped battery pack and the bolt carrier replacement. You clear the rifle, and in this case, like for reals, be super intentional about this part. I know all tasks with a gun start by clearing the chamber, but in this case, we plan to pull the trigger, so we had better be extra certain of what we're doing. Unload the rifle and put all the ammo, mags, and original bolt carrier group and charging handle into a separate room. Do not return to that room until you have decided to end your training session. Once you're confident that the rifle is safe, pop it open, replace your charging handle and bolt carrier with the Blackbeard. Then you close it up, insert the battery, and you can pew-pew without pew-pewing. You cannot close the ejection port cover while the Blackbeard is installed, which is pretty smart, I think. That makes it possible to conclusively verify the unit is installed. If I don't see that bright red plastic where the bolt carrier would be, it is not safe. It doesn't modify or alter your rifle in any way. You keep your existing trigger, selector, and all of that stuff. So the trigger feels exactly the way it always does. The only thing that's different is each time you drop the hammer, the Blackbeard quickly cocks it for you again so you can continue to dry fire and practice manipulating the selector switch just as you would if you were firing live ammo. It also fires a laser with each shot to indicate where your bullet would have hit. This on its own is a pretty valuable training tool to show end users how height over bore works. If you're new to rifles as a close range defense tool, there's this little quirk to them that seems obvious after you think about it, but it isn't really something that comes up very often with most pistols and shotguns because the sights on those guns are typically mounted very close to the bore axis. Because the sight on your AR sits about 2 inches above the barrel, that means that bullets that are fired at close range impact about 2 inches below your point of aim. The point of impact appears to rise as distance increases until you get to the distance you're zeroed for. Even if you're pretty well trained and you understand that you need to hold a couple inches low at close range, if you spend enough time with the Blackbeard, it's really easy to dial that in and instinctively hold correctly for the distance you're at. The battery pack looks and feels like a magazine, but a little lighter than a loaded mag, and it has a set of indicator lights that show what the charge level is. I honestly don't know how many times the unit can cock the hammer. The manufacturer doesn't say, and that's obviously variable depending on the strength of the hammer spring. But I've worn my finger out several times and the battery is still going strong. I only charged it once when I first received it and it's still trucking. This thing is fast too. I'm no Jerry Michalik, but I couldn't outrun it. If it isn't every bit as fast as the real action of the gun, I can't tell. When you do finally manage to drain the battery, you can charge it again with the provided USB micro cable, just in case you didn't already have a drawer full of them. The first time you use the Blackbeard, you're going to want to zero the laser. It has a switch to make the laser stay on instead of just firing when the hammer drops, and 2 screws for elevation and windage. All 3 controls can be accessed through the ejection port with the device installed. So you set the rifle somewhere stable and adjust the screws until you see the laser dot instead of the reflected crescent of light caused by the laser reflecting off the inside of the bore. If you are so inclined, you can take it a step further and align the laser with the reticle for windage. Remember, the height of your sight over the bore means the laser will still impact a couple of inches below the center of the reticle. Once it's zeroed, you can switch back to the momentary mode where the laser only flashes when the hammer drops. The laser itself is not daylight bright. I mean, you can see it on a light-colored background in the shade, but it's hopelessly outshined in direct sunlight. Probably not that important because the whole point of this is to be able to train in the comfort of your home. Only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun in Phoenix. And that's it. That's all it does. End of video, right? I'm not going to dump it in my rain barrel or run over it with a truck because it isn't a life support device. This is a training tool. There's no point in torture testing it. I have been using it for months though in several different rifles and I've had no real problems. It hiccuped maybe 2 or 3 times in the first dozen trigger squeezes. And honestly, I don't know if that's because it had to work out a kink or because I didn't fully seat the battery in the magazine well, but since then it hasn't missed a tick. So what else is there to say? Well, maybe there is a little more to talk about. As deceptively simple as this thing is on the surface, it really is something to get excited about. I've been looking for something like this for years for exactly the reasons I gave at the beginning of the video. Dry fire practice is absolutely critical to establishing and refining muscle memory. Ask any top-level competitor if they dry fire and they'll all answer yes. Most say they dry fire more than they live fire, and these guys literally get pallets of ammo from their sponsors for free. Whether you want to improve your muscle memory and work on movement through your home for defensive training, or you just want to practice trigger control for a precision rifle match, it comes down to the same thing: repetitions. The Mantis Blackbeard allows you to get those repetitions in essentially for free anytime you get a tickle. Of course, dry fire can't replace live fire. You still need to train on the range as well. But dry fire can make your range time orders of magnitude more productive, and likewise, the Blackbeard makes dry fire more productive than without it. So what do I think? Well, first of all, it's ridiculously fun. And as I mentioned, this is an invaluable training tool. For $200, the Blackbeard costs about as much as half a case of Russian 223. If you could find any in stock right now, that is. It also lets new shooters learn the basics in a safe and non-threatening environment. No ear pro, no distraction from other shooters, and most importantly, no recoil or muzzle blast. They can learn the fundamentals of marksmanship and they can practice moving the selector and getting a shot off in a timely manner. They can learn everything that's really important before setting foot on a hot range. It's easy to forget how intimidating guns are for a first-timer, and anything we can do to ease their mind, particularly the amygdala, will make it a more positive and productive experience. And it also means that hoplaholics like you and I can run drills anytime we want. And that means you can get in way more repetitions. On those grounds alone, I could forgive a lot in the way of poor design choices, but there isn't much here that I don't like. I do have a few druthers, of course. I'm just a generally disagreeable kind of guy, so of course I can find something to complain about. It is possible to insert the Blackbeard with a live round in the chamber, but it is not possible for the Blackbeard to fire that round. Still, I'd be more comfortable if the device protruded just far enough forward into the chamber that it could not be installed with a round in the chamber. I fully understand this is not a rational position and it is simply motivated by feelings, but there it is. I do wish it had a feature that you could count shots.
Someone's not counting. 6.
And force a reload at 10, 20, or whatever round count specified by the user. I wish the charging handle and bolt hold open worked so you could perform those reloads in the same way as you normally would. And if we're going that far, I'd like to have a mode that would randomly induce a malfunction. And, well, we may as well make 30 round sized battery packs so they fit my gear. This device has enormous potential. It's easy to take off on a fanciful journey through all the cool stuff that you could do with it. For example, someday they could make a Miles type harness to sense laser hits so you could do force on force training. You could even pair the harness with the Blackbeard by Bluetooth so it disables the gun when you die. And you could pulse modulate the laser with a unique identifier to track who shot who for the AAR. Now, obviously, we would all have to put our big boy pants on and act like grown-ups if we're to be pointing real guns at each other, but the bright red coloring of the BCG and magazine would make identification easy, and we do it all the time in controlled environments with BFAs or simunitions. Of course, all of that represents a pretty substantial R&D expenditure. I have no idea if Mantis has plans to go in that direction, so it's all just unicorn farts, but it sure would be cool, right? I don't know, maybe Mantis is working on some of these things already. This is the first version they have brought to market, so I would be surprised if they didn't use the feedback they get from end users to introduce improvements in a future version. But ultimately, the few criticisms I have don't take anything away from the utility of this training aid. It is intended to assist you in dry fire, and it does that admirably. Another issue that might upset some of you, but doesn't bother me in the slightest, is the current version is not compatible with piston ARs. I don't really care about that because piston ARs are stupid, pointless abominations to Eugene Stoner's, peace be upon him, design that adds weight, reduce accuracy, and increase wear with no substantive improvement, all while complicating the system with non-standard parts that can be difficult to find. Piston ARs are stupid. Fight me. Still, if you're one of those weirdos that's into that sort of thing, you do you, boo. Mantis is working on a version that will be compatible with piston ARs in the future. They don't have plans to make a version for the AK or any other inferior rifles right now, but Mantis did say they will get to work on one if there's enough demand. As you can imagine, even minor revisions can be expensive, and a complete redesign for a different rifle would be even more so. Bottom line, I have immensely enjoyed my time with the Mantis Blackbeard, and I normally end my reviews by saying something along the lines of, I can't tell you whether this fits your needs, but I hope that I've given you enough information to make that decision for yourself. Well, I do hope I've given you enough information, and I wouldn't presume to make choices for you, but I feel confident in saying that if you keep an AR-15 for defense, you should have one of these. I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you want to help us keep doing this, please consider supporting us by supporting our sponsor, TNVC.com. Always bold and never bitter, the clean, crisp taste of TNVC goes down smooth, like you. If you like seeing stuff more than not seeing stuff, you should consider that it's dark half the time on this planet. TNVC has what you need to be the bump in the night. And if you'd like to support us more directly, check out the fly threads in our Teespring store. Guaranteed to trigger a stepper or no money back. I love you.